Those who have seen my previous videos know that I have a mini rotary table. I've had that device for 4 years now, and it was no fun to work with. This tool was poorly designed, crudely built, and could not be used for more precise work without major modifications. Because the misery of this bad buy is important for what is to come, I will briefly discuss it in more detail on the basis of a sketch. Top left, the unadapted device. Most important changes are: A. Top right. A recess is turned in the table and the housing, so that a bearing is created at the top. The table came from the factory with only one ball bearing at the bottom, and was therefore very unstable. Especially when the lock screw was tightened, you could see the table shifting in the housing with the naked eye. B. Top right. The worm gear was attached to the table with only a thin pin. In addition, it was loose on the shaft. Of course, that resulted in too much slack. With Loctite and 2 small bolts, that gear is firmly attached to the table. C. Top right. The lock screw that dug itself in the table is now fitted with a bronze crescent-shaped locking mechanism. E. Bottom right. The manufacturer had also not bothered to match the 0 point of the table with the horizontal and vertical position of the T-slots. That has also been adjusted. D. Top right. And then the last blooper remained: the clearance between the worm gear and the worm could not be adjusted. With some grinding and filing I changed the angle so that at least the worst of the play was gone. Well, hindsight is 2020. A bad buy of €75, but it was at least usable after these modifications. And now I got an email from Vevor, the company you can find all over the internet, specialized in selling gadgets and tools. They asked me if I liked to make a review of their rotary table. Also a small 4-inch table, but tiltable. With a price of €95, only bit more expensive than that little disaster here. I was curious. I thought it would be nice to be able to crack down on a tool that was too cheap once again. But not at my expense this time. So I wrote to Vevor that I only wanted to do that if I was completely free to report what I wanted. They wrote me that was okay. So here's a review of the Vevor 4-inch tiltable rotary table. Enjoy. This is the 4-inch Vevor tiltable rotary table that was sent to me in a cardboard box. The first impression is very good. I don't see any burrs, chips, scratches or dents. The cast iron appears to be of high quality and shows no imperfections. The surfaces look neatly finished, and I don't feel any sharp edges. There is virtually no play, the table tilts very smoothly. I just find that little short lever a bit strange. The finish is very neat. A thick matte black paint on the case, and a nice matte finish, I think a nickel plating, on the knobs and scale ring. The fact that the handwheel has a double grip, one of which has been made shorter, is a welcome detail. The underside looks immaculate and feels very precisely finished. But I like that single short stick less and less. I prefer it double so that there is a bit more grip. I don't want to have to tighten the table with a wrench later. On my to-do list, small and simple job 1, make an extra stick. This runs very smoothly and evenly, very nice. The scales on the edge of the table and on the handwheel are beautiful, very easy to read and probably laser etched. The bottom plate is equipped with adjusting screws, with which the table can be accurately leveled in the hinge direction. With a small grub screw, the set screws can be tightened. It strikes me that such adjusting screws for the vertical position are missing. That is a pity because now the table has to be set vertically with the help of a machinist square. The scale is not accurate enough for that. Small and simple job 2. Make adjustment screws for the vertical position. I don't feel any play anywhere, neither at the table nor at the hand wheel. So I'm pretty sure that slack can be trimmed away in this table. On the surface table, let's take a closer look at the precision. I don't hear the soft ticking of an uneven bottom anywhere. It seems really flat. In theory it could be a bit hollow. We'll check that later. The table cannot be adjusted parallel to the pivot points, so the height on both sides must be almost equal. And with a deviation of about 1/100th of a millimeter, this also looks good. It is a pity that the manufacturer did not provide a slotted base. But I can understand that because the width of the T-slots varies per milling table, and then a choice has to be made. So, less simple job 3. Make a slotted base so the table is always correctly lined up. With a precision machinist straight edge, I check the bottom and the table surface. Nowhere do I see light seeping under the rim. These planes are really flat. There is a very small wobble in the table when rotating. However, it remains limited to about 2/100ths of a millimeter. The protractor on the side is for indication only. Without the vertical adjusting screws that I'm going to make, a machinist square should offer a solution. Or, better, align it vertically with a dial indicator. Indeed, the table appears to incline slightly in the adjustable direction. A problem that can be easily solved with the adjusting screws. The rigidity in the vertical position is somewhat less good in my opinion. But I do exert a considerable force on the table here. I don't really understand why the manufacturer made a clamping bracket on only one side. Clamping both sides would improve the rigidity. With this table, the 0 point and the T-slots in the table are exactly aligned. Nice. Here I want to get an impression of the rotation accuracy. First I align the parallel inserted in a T-slot exactly horizontally, and set the dial to 0. Then I rotate the table 180 degrees and see what the deviation from the perfect horizontal has become. It turns out to be about 0.07 of a millimeter over a length of 6 centimeters. That amounts to a deviation of 4 minutes of arc. For comparison, later more on this, the Sherline rotary table is advertised with an error of less than 12 minutes of arc. And at the end of this series of simple small tests and measurements, I want to get an impression of the instability of the table position relative to the case. I apply a lot of force here with 2 thumbs, and with a lot of effort I make the dial indicator show 1/100th of a millimeter difference. This table is quite rigid. Okay, that all looks pretty good. Let's disassemble the device to see how it is built, and if we encounter any surprises. An eccentric bushing of fine grey cast iron in which a neatly ground shaft with a worm gear fits nicely without play. If properly lubricated, such a bearing hardly wears out. The simple but effective confinement in a clamping fitting ensures that after unscrewing just one bolt, any play can be trimmed away by rotating the bushing. The hinge is a 12 mm thick shaft that is held in place with a grub screw. This fit is also accurate and, provided it is properly lubricated, will hardly wear out. The rotating table is pulled into a ball bearing at the bottom with just one screw. I hope that there is provision here for a slide bearing at the top. Given the small clearance, that must be the case. I did expect some mess and grit in the housing, but everything is neat and clean and well lubricated. The worm gear and the somewhat small worm wheel seem to fit well together. This worm wheel is attached to the table with two long grub screws. I hope that a tight press fit has also been applied. In any case, there is no movement in the worm gear, even without the fixing bolts. This is an almost perfect fit, which is why there was so little play at the table. But I don't like this. The table locking screw presses against the bearing surface. Any damage caused by over-tightening this screw will affect the running and precision of the plain bearing. I'm going to come up with a better solution for this. For now, a small brass plug will precede the bolt in the screw hole, so that the table remains undamaged. Simple and quick fix number 4. Well, there's nothing left to disassemble. Let's properly grease the parts and put the device back together. Okay, now using the dial indicator and the surface table to trim away that slight slope I discovered. It's time to reach a verdict. First of all, it should be clear that the market for such small devices is very limited. Anyone who can fit a larger rotary table on their milling machine should do so, and then they will have much more choice. But in the 4-inch range, there are only 3, and if I include that little disaster that I am happily going to ditch, not much more than 4 models in the market. Then it is a matter of budget. If you're willing to pay 4 to 8 times more, the Shoreline and the Vertex are great choices. But if you're on a budget, or just aren't willing to shell out a lot for such a device, this Vevor is a great choice in my opinion. It's not perfect and there is still something to be desired with this device, but a skilled person can easily correct the small mistakes and omissions I encountered. And then he is the owner of a good, albeit simple device, which will be of great use to him. Finally, the price. This is a device produced in China, and it is offered for sale all over the internet under various fancy brand names. It is well worth searching through the web, because when I was browsing I came across prices that ranged from €95 to more than double. And this is a not unimportant point in favor of Vevor, they turned out to be the cheapest provider at €95. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you have any questions or remarks, please leave a comment, I read them all. Next time I will probably make a video of the improvements for this rotary table from Vevor. See you then.